Hello there, welcome back. Hope you're doing great. This lesson is closely related to the last one where we focused on transaction reports and BPOS. Today we're going to be looking at the other main type of report that we have, summary reports. Now while we did briefly touch on these in the back office data admin lesson earlier in the course, and they've been mentioned here or there throughout, we really haven't gone too in depth with any of them yet. So we will kick off this lesson with a bit of an overview and revisit our summary reports as a whole, before taking a closer look at one of them called the Sales Report Creator. And then we will get into saved reports, which I believe I've mentioned once or twice before. The saved reports functionality is an enhancement of our standard reports, which allows us to, you can probably guess, save them after they've been configured in whichever way we'd like them to be configured. If you remember back to the data admin lesson and how we can set a display period and other report options and so forth, edit report views, add filters, etc. After doing all of that, we can then save the report in that exact setup to be accessed quickly in the future. Along with saved reports, we'll also look at the report wizard, which is a further enhancement of our reporting functionality. It's a very powerful and useful tool in its own right. The report wizard does have a number of pre-configured reports that are shipped with the software, but we can also add saved reports to the report wizard, and I'll show you how we can do that. Cool, so now that we know the agenda, our plan here, we will head to back office, take a look at the summary reports, and then we'll progress into saved reports and the report wizard. So first, a bit more about what our summary reports are, but I'll have to relate back to the last lesson on transaction reports for a little comparison, because while we can use transaction reports sort of like microscopes to get a really fine detailed look at things and be able to see, each and every action that occurred, our summary reports, on the other hand, can be used to take a more scalable and holistic approach depending on what we do want to look at. So these reports will take relevant data, whether it be sales data, stock data, promotions data, depending on the specific report of course, and serve it to us in some standardized purpose-built formats. For example, maybe a sales report from an operator perspective, or a sales report from a product perspective, or a stock report from a product perspective, or maybe a purchasing report. We have plenty of options, most of which we'll see today. Whatever the case may be, the main idea of summary reports is that they gather all the data from whichever reporting period we decide to report on, and will summarize that data for us in the report. Also, as we go through these, keep in mind that most of them do have multiple views that are shipped standard, so that a variety of information can be seen within each one, and of course we can always add and edit views to customize them further if we need to. Now, there isn't really a right or wrong place to start with this, so I might just start with the first stock report, which is going to be in the stock report menu, of course, and is our stock on hand report. I'll reiterate again that I know we haven't gotten into stock control just yet in this course. That should be okay for now. Those lessons will be coming up shortly, in just a few lessons time, by the way, right after we get through some additional product material and a couple lessons on accounts and points programs. Now, we're not going to get anything for this now if I go ahead and display this. Well, we do, but it'll all be negative because we haven't actually purchased and received anything into this database yet. But this would most commonly be used to see stock holdings periodically, such as for something like at the end of the month, or maybe at the end of a week, or whatever the case may be. However, it is important to note that these stock on hand numbers that we'll see in this report are theoretical quantities, unless of course a stock take has just been completed and applied. But yeah, you'll notice also that there is not a reporting period to select for this report, because it does default to show the current theoretical stock on hand information. How it does that summary, how it summarizes the data here, is essentially by calculating quantities from the most recent stock take, along with sales, purchases, transfers, and other internal stock movements. Now in our case here for this report, as I said, we haven't done any purchasing or receiving in this database yet, so these negative quantities are just based on sales that have been conducted in this database. Now, along with quantities on hand, we'll also be able to see costs, which are often just as, if not more important than the quantities. We've got no costs here for the same reason that no purchasing has actually been completed in this database yet. We do have a handful of filters also. The main one is going to be the store dropdown, because again, we'll remind you that stores hold stock, not the venue. And if we do not want to view the current stock on hand, we can deselect this current flag here, and then we could set a different date and shift if we'd like to look at maybe what the stock on hand was at a different point in time. So that's one of our summary reports, one of our common summary reports. Moving on though, I will try to keep this to just a couple minutes or so on each, and we won't go through all of our summary reports today, just a few of the more most common ones. So next up, we'll take a look at our stock summaries. And this is going to display stock activity by product and store, and by shift or date range. So stock activity being product movements, such as, again, purchases, stock that's been sold, stock that's been transferred, any stock adjustments that have been made, stock losses, etc. So one thing we might do is look at the stock on hand report first, and then maybe we're wondering why a product's quantity is at a certain level. Well, then we can come here and look at the stock summaries report and should be able to get a pretty good idea. We can set the store or store group, and we can set a reporting period for this particular report. And then with the standard view, we will be able to see the quantities and cost of what's been received, what's been sold, what's been transferred, what's been spoiled, etc., etc. Again, some of these terms and concepts will make more sense after upcoming lessons on stock control, but I think you get the idea for now. There are a couple more summary reports in the stock reports menu here, but we will just skim over them for now. We have our stock purchases report, which is going to show us the invoice totals for all the products that have been purchased from suppliers for a given period. So this one will definitely make more sense once we cover purchase orders, but essentially will just give us a summary of purchases only, but does include quite a bit of detail on those purchases. Let's see here, the stock take report, that's a bit different, and we'll get into that specifically when we do cover stock takes on their own. And then we've got our products by supplier. This is a summary report of sorts as well. You might remember from the product maintenance lessons that we can assign products to suppliers, which I will demonstrate in an upcoming lesson after we add suppliers to our database in one of the stock control sessions that's coming up. Well, this report can then be used after we've assigned suppliers to products, and we're essentially saying that these are the suppliers that we can purchase this product from. So once we do that, this report then reports the products that have been essentially allocated or linked to each supplier, and we can view the report by supplier so that we can quickly see not only which products can be purchased from which suppliers, but also more detailed information depending on the view. In the case of this on-hand and last sale view, we'd be able to see exactly that. All right, moving on to our sales reports. I think I've got myself locked in to this because I don't have a supplier to select. I'm going to have to close back office. Back in 1 second. There we go. All right, so as I was saying, moving on to our sales reports, there are a handful of reports here that will do a similar thing for us, but spin the data in a certain way. What that thing is to give us summarized sales data as opposed to stock data. But how do we want to view that sales data? Do we want to see it by till, by operator, maybe by product, maybe by account? But before we even do get into any of those, maybe we'd like to start with a look at the period summary report. This is going to combine a lot of those individual categories along with some others into essentially a snapshot. So we can select an individual store if we'd like to. Maybe I'll just go with our main restaurant. We don't actually have any data for other stores anyway, but then we can select a report period for this as well. So maybe I'll just go with current year. and I'll display that. This is then going to show us some stock summary data, some account summary data if we have any. Obviously we don't have any anyway, but it would be available. We can see there for all stores, but if I just refresh, we don't have any account summary data in here anyway. But we can also see sales summary data, a summary of our discounts, a banking summary, and for products we can see a breakdown of type group sales here. So even without much data here, some of these categories having no data, you can still imagine how useful this report would be. Again, not a ton of data in this database, but we can still get a general idea of what this report can do for us. Alright, then these next four in the sales report menu, the till summaries, operator summaries, product summaries, and account summaries, like I said, they're going to be somewhat similar, each one just with a different spin on the sales data. So the till summaries report is probably the most different compared to the others. We can see that there's quite a few views that are readily available for it, but to summarize what this report can do, pun very much intended there, depending on the view that we do select, this report can be used to display everything from cash balancing information to sales totals that are grouped by sorts or types, to simply an overview of transactions, quantities, sales, cost of sales, profits, and so on, which we can actually see from our standard view here. We can see our data columns at the top. And for all of this wonderfully useful analytical information, we can choose to display the report by tills, stores, store groups, or venue. Now, another great feature of this report is this time span filter here, which we had looked at in the data admin lesson. What this lets us do is get into things like viewing sales maybe only for Fridays over whichever display period we've got set. So maybe we run the report for the current year, and then we could use this filter to look at each Friday's data within the year. But that is the gist of our till summaries report. So moving on to the operator summaries, similar to till summaries in that we're summarizing the same sales data that can be summarized for tills, but different in that it reports the sales by operator, of course, instead of by till. Again, we've got a handful of readily available views here, and this report can be used to do things like track staff performance and compare sales between operators and so forth. Keep in mind we can also edit these views, or we can add another one if we'd like to, and we can display data for things like no sales, returns, canceled orders, things like that, and potentially highlight some problems or areas of concern, maybe, perhaps. Also, one of the neat features of this report is that we can use the operator list over here. We can actually select an operator group if we'd like to report on an entire group, or if we would like to get individual operator totals, we could just turn on this flag here. Bad example there because I don't actually have any operators in that group, but and I'm looking at a display here that won't have anything if I set that to current year, and we display that. Cool, only 2 operators that have had any sales in this database: Casey, our head waiter, and master setup. But cool, it gives us an idea of what this report could be used for here. And if you are maybe more interested in specific product performance instead, or in addition to operator performance, then we've got our product summaries, which would be the place to go for that. So now, looking at sales data from the product perspective, this can be used to show product sales, cost of sales, any discounts applied, profitability, but at a product or product group level. So speaking of which, same idea with the product list as we just saw with the operator summaries. We can select an entire product group from the list if we want to report on the group as a whole, with the option to view product totals. So I might set that to current year to give us a little bit of data there as well, but we can see how this could be used. Now, only a couple of out-of-the-box views for this report, but the other one is this net sales comparison. This is going to allow us to select a second period. As we can see, that flag's been turned on there to show second period, and compare the net sales and profits between the two periods that we select. So again, I'm not going to get anything in this database, but one example could be if we want to look at, set one of these periods to last year or last calendar year. I'll do last year and then maybe current year for this one. And like I said, I'm not going to get anything for this, but we could see the first period's net total and profits here and the second period's net total and profits here, and we could compare those to one another. And then last up, we have our account summaries. Now I know we haven't done anything with accounts yet, but once we do in a couple lessons time, you'll see that we can have an account list that will be similar to the operator list with different tiers and groups of account holders, different ways that we can structure our account list, pretty similar to what we can do with operator list or product list. Now with this report, we can then see the net turnover for accounts, any account charges, account payments, balances, points that have been earned and redeemed and expired, and so forth. And just as a reminder again, that we can add and edit views to be able to see different account data from what is available from these two out-of-the-box views that we've got. But yeah, that is a relatively quick overview of the bulk of our most common summary reports, aside from the sales report creator, which we will look at momentarily. Now we do have some additional reports that could be considered to be summary reports within the other reports menu here, but some are not as common, and others like the audit report we will see later in the course. Also, as for our analysis reports and marketing reports, some of these may not even be applicable to your database, since some of these do require additional system authorizations that you may or may not have, so you may not actually be able to see analysis reports, for example, in your database. But yeah, that is, like I said, a pretty good overview of our summary reports, if I do say so myself. Whether we want to view and analyze data for purchases, sales by product, sales by operator, sales by account, etc., we are able to collate data in a number of ways and configure, view it however we'd like to, but using an array of report options that we do have. That being said, the sales report creator, which is up here of course in the sales report menu, which we'll look at now, you'll see that this can be used if we start with a report type, a particular report type. We're then able to filter with all these different bits here, choose some options, and create a highly customized sales report, hence the name Sales Report Creator, which makes this a very useful tool for its capabilities that do go beyond what some of our other reports can do, by being able to refine this one single report into literally dozens of different ways, whereas some of the other reports are a bit more straightforward. One of the distinctions of this Sales Report Creator is that we can use it to more closely analyze sales in terms of factors that we might not normally consider. For example, maybe we'd like to base this report by product, so I'll just leave that alone. But then in this product list tree down here, maybe we could select a specific product group from the list that we'd like to look at, but then we'd maybe want to filter to only look at that product group sales for maybe a specific operator group, maybe just the lunch bartenders or something like that, for example, and maybe only for one store or store group. Maybe we only want to look at the sales by product for our packaged beer and cider, for our lunch bartenders, and only from the sports bar. And maybe then using these options over here, we'd like to exclude some of these and only look at table sales. So that would be just one of many examples of how this report could be used. We could probably have an entire lesson on just the Sales Report Creator, but we'll try to keep it relatively light so that we can move on to the saved reports and report wizard. But yeah, I'll just go a little more in depth with our reporting options and how to configure and run this report efficiently. As I said, the place to start would be with the report type. By the way, the same views are going to be available for all of these report types. with the standard view here showing a name column. Now that name is going to be a name that's applicable to the report type. So for the by operator, or sorry, the by product report type, it's going to list product names. If I just, let's set this to current year just to give us something here. Nope, I'll have to select base product group maybe. Nope, nothing there either. Maybe I'll probably have to deselect all of these things here. Just go to all stores and I will clear that selection. Let's try to display something there. Cool. So if we then go product totals, all right, there we go. In this case, the name column is going to show us the name of the products. If we had that set to operator, it's going to show us operator names, so on and so forth there. Then we've got stock mode, which is really only valid for the product report type, but the rest of the data columns in this standard view are all relatable for all report types. So we've got our units sold, gross and net sales, the cost X of sales, and profit amount and percent. So the idea, like I said, is to begin by selecting one of these report types so that the report data will initially be grouped by that chosen selection. And then notice actually as I select them that the tree list down here is going to change dynamically, or it is going to disappear altogether for this report by store and report by date option. In those cases, we're saying that we do not want to base the report on a product group, operator group, or account group, but just prefer to look at the sales data for an entire store, in which case we will have an option here to report on till totals within a store. And then we've got our report by date option, which will show a separate line in the report for each individual day of the reporting period, with an option to show shift totals in this case. So if I go back to, oh, I do have it on current year. If we go to display that there, we could see shift totals, or we could have that just show a separate line for each day. And for report by store, this won't show us much because we only have sales for one store in this database, but it would show us separate lines for each store then with the related data here. But once we do have that report type selected and we have decided on the display period, in this case I'll just leave it as the current year, we can then get even more exact with what we'd like to report on by next using the filters. So again, maybe the report type, maybe we'll go with operator, but maybe we don't want to see sales data for all products in the database. We can filter to a specific product group or a specific, even an individual product if we'd like to. I'll just select that product group there. Or maybe we're reporting by store, but we want to filter to only look at sales for a certain operator group. Or perhaps we're reporting by account, but we only want to look at sales where a certain voucher type was used. I know we haven't looked at accounts or vouchers yet, but we will be getting to them shortly in the course, and then those types of options may make a bit more sense. By the way, I should mention this. If we are filtering to a specific product or product group, we can even go a step further and look at sales for only for a specific size if we would like to. But then yeah, once we've got some filters selected, or maybe not, we could leave all these off. They are optional, of course. But then maybe we'd like to use the options section here to include or exclude certain types of sales. By the way, I should mention that cash sales here are referring to non-table or account sales, so retail transactions where there's been no account attached. So not a table sale, not an account sale, just a straight retail called a cash transaction, a cash sale here. But maybe we do only want to look at sales for accounts, or maybe we want to look at all other sales except for account-based ones, so we could turn the rest of those on and leave the account ones off. Different options there, obviously. I should also mention that the other account sales option here is referring to delivery and pickup transactions. I should point out this as well, that for the product by report option, there's a couple other options available in the options section. The ability to show product sizes and to show ingredient sales in the report also. But we are not done just yet. There's a handful of other options and filters that do sit outside of these boxes, like optionally being able to filter to an account profile or to a product profile. Both topics will actually be covered in the next 2 lessons, ironically. But yeah, depending on the report type, for product, operator, and account-based reports, we will have an option to view sub-records as well as view inactive database records if we'd like to. And for those report types, we can choose to break the report down further by location type. So maybe we want to look at the report by store. Now, when a location has been selected, this pivot table flag here will become available. Otherwise, it will be grayed out if this is on all. But if we've got that set to one of the other options there, this will be available. And if I select that, the report will literally pivot and changes the data columns into location names. As the name implies, this kind of turns the report on its head here. If we look at the views now, the specific data that's displayed when the table is pivoted can be changed here to look at maybe net totals by location. Maybe we've got discount totalizers, sales for certain days of the week. If I scroll down a bit more, or maybe I scrolled past them. Oh, there we go. Units and counts and things for different days of the week, etc. Dozens of options here to round out the creator aspect of this report. There is one final thing I want to show you before we move on, and that is if I turn off the pivot table option here, that we have this other view here called time break sales. What this is going to do is display data by time breaks that have been set in the global settings. So if we head to global settings, we'll take a quick refresher at this. We believe we looked at this briefly in the System Setup 101 lesson. But on this reporting tab, we've got this time breaks section. So this allows us to create specific reporting time break periods here at the global level and then use them for reporting. So we can set 24 intervals in total, which logically says to have one, each one be an hour long, but they could be set up however we'd like them to be. So for example, maybe you'd like to report on 90-minute blocks of time as opposed to 1 hour increments, or some time breaks be 1 hour and others 2 hours, 4 hours, etc. I won't actually set these, but I think you get the idea there. So if I just cancel that, we go back to that report, you can see how this view will break down each of the intervals and show net sales for each one. Obviously, like I said, I haven't set these, so they're all showing the same interval there. But if we had them set, we would be able to see net sales for each of the intervals, each of the time break intervals that we've got set up. Now don't forget that all of our views, or most of our views, can be edited. This one in particular though, if we go into edit, one of the things that we can add to this view is going to be covers. If I just search for covers in there, these can be added also by those same time breaks so that we can report on those by time break interval. So another handy little feature that we can do there with that report. Let me cancel out of all of that. So speaking of editing views and pivoting, a couple puns in there, I guess. We'll pivot now and focus on our saved reports, which I alluded to earlier, that they allow us to do things like set report filters, configure a certain view, etc., and then save the report in that exact setup to be accessed again and again without needing to actually reconfigure the report each time. So for this, we will change gears slightly as well and sort of get into some stock control stuff. So let's say, for example, that I'm a stock manager and I want to see if we'll come back, well, not stock control, stock reports. I want to see the stock on hand report every day when I get in, but I want to create my own special view for it. So the example that I'll use here will be pretty simple. This could be a lot more customized than what I'll do, but for simplicity's sake, I'm just going to edit the standard view here. And I'm going to add an item volume column to this, and I'll just click OK to save that and refresh that. So we've got this item volume column added to the view now. If we go subproducts, we can see all of the different item volumes that have been added for our products in this database. Now, let's say that I'm a very peculiar stock manager maybe, and I only care about products that are 1 liter in volume. So I might filter this report to only show us products that are 1 liter in volume here. And this report, we know from earlier, doesn't have a display period to be able to set. But if we wanted to save this to save a report that does have a display period, maybe a sales report, and we want to have it set to the current week, we could do that. But regardless, for our example here, where I'm a lazy stock manager and I want to save a couple minutes of configuring this report manually every time, obviously that wasn't too difficult to do, and that view is going to be saved like that anyway. But let's just use this simple example here. So after I've got my view set and my filters applied, and of course any other configurations that I'd like to set, and we know from past lessons that, and from this lesson, that different reports will obviously have can potentially have a lot of different options to set. So once we've got all those things set however we would like them, we're then going to have an option at the top called Save Report. We can give the saved report a name. Call this one Allen's 1 liter stock on hand, and then we can choose to save it either as a personal report, which would then show in this, this would be our saved reports drop down here at the top left, which currently says no reports saved, but that would be for personal saved reports. And the drop down above it is for global ones. That's this next radio button here to save it as a global report that any operator with global report access will be able to get to. There's also this global hidden option, which means that it will not appear in either of these drop downs, which is going to prevent them from becoming overcrowded, but we will still be able to access the global hidden reports elsewhere, and we'll be able to use it in scheduled jobs. I know we haven't covered scheduled jobs yet, but we'll be able to use global hidden reports in scheduled jobs still, and we can add it to the report wizard, which we will be getting to momentarily. So what I'll do is I'll actually go ahead and save this as global hidden, but feel free to save a few in your database using different options if you'd like. They can always be unsaved or deleted. Now notice that it has not been added to either of these drop downs, so there's just a couple examples out of the box that come in this global saved reports, and the personal saved reports should have nothing in yours out of the box, so there's still just no report saved there, even though I have saved that. All saved reports are still going to be able to be accessed from the saved reports list in the other reports menu. So here in other reports, we've got our saved reports. As long as an operator does have access to this, of course, we do have an operator privilege that controls access to saved reports. But we can see here that we can edit, delete, we can run our saved report, and we can save as wizard report amongst a few other options here. So speaking of wizard reports, the report wizard, which we can access on its own from the top menu up here, we could probably spend an entire 30-minute lesson on just the report wizard. But just to summarize, this is a very useful, handy component that contains dozens of reports, the same ones that are available via the side menu, but have all been pre-configured into a variety of ways. So similar to what I did for the stock on hand report that I just saved, but then they are organized into different reporting categories. Now, our report wizard is shipped with a range of these pre-created reports. By the way, I should mention that your list of reporting categories and available reports will look a bit different to mine because mine has already been altered in the past. We can see I've got some different categories here, cohort 004. But anyway, again, these reports will all be available via the side menu. However, through the wizard, they are organized for faster access into groups like essential reports, We've got sales analysis, marketing and promotions, investigation reports, and stock reports are the reporting categories that are going to come standard. Each group is then further broken up, and within each category we can access a number of related reports. So for example, within the sales analysis reporting group category here, there is a product performance subcategory, which has a handful of reports in here, one of them being this one that's called product type sales by store, which is readily available for us, and we can see a description down here, some description and usage, just to give us an idea of what this is meant to be used for. So if we go ahead and run the report, depending on the based report that this saved report here was created from, or whichever one we select is created from and based on, we might have to make some choices, such as the reporting period or selecting a location, for example. So for this one, I will just stick with current year that I've been selecting throughout this lesson. That is going to generate the report straight away for us, and we can see at the top here that this is actually a till summaries report, and we can see that this has been set up to display by stores, and it's using this view that's called product types. So that would save someone from running the till summaries report manually and then configuring it that way manually. So it's a bit of a shortcut ready to go for us straight from the report wizard menu. Couple clicks in here and we can generate that report for us. Now I should mention that the expectation for most scenarios is not that all of the reports in the wizard here will be exactly what you're after or what a client is after straight out of the box. There may be some specific reports that are needed which are missing from the wizard, and there may be certainly some available from the wizard that you may never use. But it's for that exact reason that we can add, edit, and remove reports from the wizard. However, very important disclaimer here is I do need to note that this option is only available on support systems to be able to edit the report wizard's reports, so it is designed to be done prior to a venue's go live. Very important. It should also be noted, which I alluded to earlier, that when we are saving reports with the sole intention of adding them to the report wizard, they should be saved as global hidden, which will avoid an excess of reports displaying in these saved reports dropdowns. But yeah, that very important, again, very important disclaimer aside, by first building a report in back office and saving it like we did, we can then add it to the report wizard. So to do so, if I actually cancel this, we come back to our saved reports list here. All we need to do is highlight the desired report from the list here, and then click Save as Wizard Report. And then we basically just have a short little form here to fill out. We'll be able to configure how and where the report will appear within the report wizard, and a number of other optional settings here as well. So by default, this will have the same name as the saved report, but we could change that if we'd like to so that it will show differently in the wizard. We can add a system auth requirement if we want to link it to one of the system authorizations, but I'll just leave this without. For groups and categories, we can either select one of the existing ones, or we can actually add a new one just by typing into these fields. I won't do it, but trust me, we can. We can also add a description so that other users will know what this report is all about and why they might want to use it. And then at the bottom here, we can configure some additional options and prompts that can be set up if there are any other fields that need to be prompted to the user for the report to be generated and displayed, such as if we do want to ask for a reporting period or ask for a location, so on and so forth, we can configure those things. Then after we save it, it will be available wherever we've set it to appear within the group and the category with the rest of the reports in the report wizard, meaning that operators can then simply access and run the report that we've saved and now added to the global or added to the report wizard that other operators can then save or can then run quite easily whenever they need to. Now I will not save this, I'll just cancel that, but if we come back to our report wizard, we can see some that I have created, saved, and added in the past. If we come down to stock reports in this group here that I've created, which is called number 1 stock reports, we've got Alan's stock report, which we can see is the best stock report ever. Alright, well that is going to do it for this lesson. We've taken a relatively deep dive into our summary reports. We've seen the sales report creator somewhat in depth, and we've seen how we can not only save reports but also add them to our report wizard, of course with that very important disclaimer that that is meant to only be used prior to Venue's go live. But yeah, report wizard is quite the powerhouse in its own right. Aside from being able to add reports to it, the report wizard is here for us at our disposal to make reporting much more efficient, and in many cases has a lot of, like I said, pre-configured reports set up ready to go for us. So as always, thank you for watching, and we'll see you for the next one.